I'll call the meeting to order, May 25th, 4 o'clock in person, at the Greenfield Police Meeting Room. Chair statement, this meeting is not being recorded, videotaped, or broadcast. If any other persons present are recording, videotaping, or broadcasting this meeting, you must notify the chairperson at this time. Please just state your name.
Jaden Grazik.
Jason Grazik. Perfect. Thank you, Jason. Okay, roll call. So I'm present. Rick Clark.
Here.
Present. Suzanne White.
Present.
And Michelle Glory.
Present.
Thank you. Forum. Okay, prior meeting minutes for April 27th. Secretary had emailed them out, everybody has gotten them, I'm sure. Is there a motion to accept them?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Everybody feels everything's okay with the minutes or not? Yes? Okay. Rick, how do you vote?
Aye.
Michelle?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
Which is yes. Okay, old business, the new fire station project updates. What I do is I send out the previous minutes for the building committee to the commissioners, so they have them as updates. And so if there's anything within those minutes or updates that you want to ask, we have the chief here. And
I have just a couple comments. One is I do really appreciate Chief receiving those minutes, so they do help me a lot. The question I do have one question. It keeps being a referral to railroad property in there, and are we really talking that, or are we talking DOT property?
Great question. So the DOT owns the north-south branch, and this is the east-west branch, and that is owned by Pan Am Railroad. It's still freight train. There's no passenger train on there, so it's freight train. The railroad itself has its own buffer on both sides of the railroad track. That is their property. This is a small little leftover piece from probably the turn of the century, back when there was the carriage house was down there. And it's a strip that runs all the way down from the back of Main Street all the way down to Conway Drive, and broken up into two separate little sections. It's about 15 feet wide and a few hundred feet long. It really doesn't impact the project, other than it allows us to set up staging on their property, move the utility poles that are currently running through the middle of it. So it's a pretty vital piece that we could get, but it's not something that is going to stop the project if it doesn't happen.
Understood, thank you.
It is funny that the previous owner had buildings back probably 30 or 40 years ago on that property. So it's not like it's been maintained by the railroad for.
Is that where that little brick building was?
And to me, it looked like old greenhouses.
Yeah.
Yep.
I also wanted to thank you, Chief, for sending those along. I find them very helpful to read and informative, just to give also continued learning about the scope of what you're covering. But also, I think we asked this last time, and I'd like to ask it again. Since we received the minutes, because things are moving so quickly on that project, have there been any developments?
Oh, there's developments every day.
I know, that's why I'm asking that question. Quick is a relative term. I'm glad it seems quick to you.
Yeah, so
I should say
2 years.
complex.
Yeah.
Complex would be better. Complex.
really the biggest updates that we're happy to report on is we are pursuing multiple grants, significant money grants that we're optimistic that will help with the project. So that's probably the biggest update. The other one is it's gone to planning, it's going to zoning the first of next month, and should have its hopefully have its approvals through that. We should be going out to bid around summertime, with bids back, and hopefully construction will begin summer, fall, with a move-in date projection still on target for August or September of 2023.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Did I get everything?
I think you did.
Thank you very much. Okay. Old business, we had the chief send us the reform bill, and, which is, Rick could hold it up, the 176-page reform bill for us to kind of look at. But we sort of feel that we probably would need a separate committee working with the mayor and the chief and others to really kind of go through it and get an understanding of what it means going forward. It's rather encompassing, and see how it plays into, the city council's updates on the charter. And so I think we should table that for now. Is there a motion to table?
Yeah, I move we table it until the next meeting.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion on that? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Perfect. Okay, AMR contract renewal discussion. AMR has been our ambulance service for the past 3 years. They've done an outstanding job as far as I'm concerned. They're a mammoth national company. They have the ability to bring to bear services and support to the city, the likes of which we've never had before. In the last, this is the third ambulance company I've had since I've been on the commission that I've worked with, which is a great thing. Their size would suggest that they would dismiss a small community like us because they deal with so many very large communities nationwide, but actually they've sort of made us feel like they're a local ambulance company, and they've worked very well, been very responsive to the commission, and very responsive to the police and the fire services in the last 3 years. And I just think it's great that they want to sign up again with us. So I might just ask the fire chief to, talk a little bit about the relationship and how you
Sure.
feel about signing them up again.
Sure. So, as fire chief, I've worked with 3 separate ambulance companies, with the last one being AMR. The model has changed a little bit from the way that the old companies worked, which is a good thing because those companies are no longer in business. So, one of the big changes that we have with AMR is really the EMS system in the city's like a triangle. There's 3 parts to the triangle. One part is the AMR themselves, the second part is the hospital, and the third part is the fire department. And that the zero-based contract for the city of Greenfield only works when all 3 of those components are together and working, the planning and the response and everything. And so when AMR is unavailable on calls, whether it's for 9/11 emergencies, 911 emergencies, or whether it's for an emergent transport out of the Franklin down to Springfield, that's where the fire department comes in and does the backup. That collectively, I think, is not only a state-of-the-art EMS system, but it keeps the cost down not only for the city, but makes their company viable to be here in the city, and working together, I think the partnership has been good. There are, like any relationship, there's challenges, but the thing that's really impressive, that has impressed me over the last 3 years with AMR, is when there has been a problem, we deal with it usually within the day. And we try to take care of it, and we do have some changes within this contract that I do want to point out. First of all, one of the things that are in here is we are looking at the possibility of a point-to-point PSAP. What that means is that each Greenfield Dispatch and AMR both have their own PSAP. They don't talk to each other, and so our dispatch doesn't have the capability to see where the AMR trucks, if they're available, and vice versa. And so we're looking into, we're not saying we're going to do it, but we are looking into it to provide that service to make it a better seamless transition when you call 911 and it goes to the hospital and you get the appropriate resources responding to the call. So that is in the contract, which I'm pretty happy about. And then the rest of it is just pretty standard from the last time. Nothing's really changed from a coverage standpoint. Minimum coverage is 2 ALS, 2 paramedic ambulances assigned on duty 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They have been really good about augmenting the busy times. So one of the duties of ambulance transports is taking folks from nursing homes or nursing facilities and bringing them to the hospital or dialysis and things like that. And so they've identified when those occurrences are happening more and more, and they staff up appropriately, which takes less of a strain off of their primary crew, which takes a little bit of a strain off of the fire department. So, but I'm very happy with it. My recommendation to you folks to forward to the mayor would be I'm very comfortable entering this agreement with the ambulance company for an additional 3 years.
As presented to us.
As presented.
Okay.
Can I just ask for clarification?
Sure.
You were moving quickly because you know this so well, but for the purpose of information sharing, could you clarify your acronym you used? And also the first change I couldn't find, the second one is under part 2 I see in here.
Yep.
And also I don't know if that's a change or you reiterated that. So could you just be very specific and clarify the changes you just mentioned?
Yeah, so the big one that I highlighted is under operational area number 1, and it's the second paragraph. And it says the parties desire to establish a CAD-to-CAD link between the City of Greenfield PSAP CAD and the AMR CAD. And it goes on from there.
What does PSAP stand for?
Public Safety Answering Point. Did I get that right?
Access point, yeah.
Access point.
Thank you.
I just have,
Sure, question?
I just have a question, Chief. I think I noticed that the term is also different. Am I correct?
Should be a
Number
3-year
9,
term.
Should be a 3-year term starting
It says
July
5
1st.
years.
Well, if that's the case, we will correct that. We will correct that.
What section are you?
9, at least on my copy,
Yeah.
says.
Yep, that can't be, it's gotta be a 3-year contract. So
Right.
We'll
The
get
mayor
that.
can't, I
That's
don't
what I
think the mayor
thought.
can sign more
Any
than 3
other-
years, so we'll make that
Yep.
change.
Okay, and then, on
So-
section 6, that is compatible with your billing?
Mhm.
Okay. I think that's all.
So, just to follow up on that question.
Yeah.
So we are working with AMR to establish an ALS intercept agreement. So if they're unavailable, my ambulance goes, they get there, it's a high acuity call, and then a paramedic from their service frees up. That paramedic will then come and intercept that rig on the way to the hospital. It doesn't happen often because the hospital is real close by, but when that happens, then the billing changes a little bit. So we have an agreement for that. And we also have agreements with our mutual aid partners and who comes into the city when they're not available, we're not available, and so on and so forth.
Now, I wasn't gonna pull a Gary Longley here, but, his favorite question was always a junk car. Remember him asking you that several times? Instead of having an ambulance available, have just a single person in a junk car. So that was his.
I do think as utilization of the system works and demand changes,
Right.
we're definitely always open with the chief to see what's gonna be best for the patients in the community. So if that model needs to be implemented, we're definitely open to discussions about it.
Patrick, will you just identify yourself for folks that might not know you in the room?
Sure, yes. Patrick Lane, I'm the operations manager, Worcester, Massachusetts, for AMR.
Could you confirm again, Chief and Patrick, number 2, there's no change since the last contract. We continue to hold at the 2 staff, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
That is correct.
And is that affected, this might not be the right question in this section, I'll just let that pass, thanks.
Keep in mind that, as with any emergency services, staffing can fluctuate a little bit, very rarely that it does. there is an obligation within this contract, and AMR is very good at this, where if for some reason both of those ambulances are tied up for more than 90 minutes, mostly because they're on emergent transports out of the hospital, I get notified and we make adjustments from there. And I'm gonna highlight this real quick because it's really important that we talk about this, because it comes up every time we talk about the contract, and that is, just because we get a patient to the hospital doesn't mean the emergency stops there, okay? There are high acuity cases that the local hospital just cannot handle, and it's emergent to get them down to a higher skilled facility, whether it's a burn victim or some other type of high acuity call. And so in those rare cases where there's more than one, both rigs could be on the road to Springfield. Now, in the past, that's been a bone of contention, but there's a reason for that, and it's usually our citizens that are getting that emergent transport down to the hospital. So I just wanna make sure that people understand that just because you get to the hospital doesn't mean that that emergency ends there, that it could continue on until they get to a higher acuity, a higher level of care hospital. Okay?
Michelle?
Yeah, Chief, on the CAD to CAD link, just a couple questions. Do you know the estimated cost for this? That's my first part. Second part would be, it says, the parties will use reasonable effort to complete this goal. What's the estimated time to get implemented, and then what's the estimated time frame that you think that this would be completed, or the expectations of both AMR and you to get this completed?
I don't have an answer for that right now. I would hope within the scope of the contract.
Within 3 years?
I would hope so. It's the technology piece is really the driving factor behind that, and then obviously if there's a significant cost, you know, that's gonna put brakes on things, so.
Thank you.
We may have to work on funding and another budget cycle, so I don't see it happening right away, within 6 months or so.
Any other questions of anyone? No? Motion to accept the contract with the changes as noted in term?
Can we include that into the recommendation that we made? I
I'll
move
make-
I move we accept the contract as presented with the modification, 3 years. And I also, with that, recommend that the commission recommend to the mayor that we go through this contract.
Okay, for a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, is there any further discussion? No? Major item, how do you vote, Rick?
I vote aye, yes.
Michelle?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
I also vote yes. Congratulations and welcome aboard for another 3 years.
Thank you,
And,
Patrick.
and I'll write a letter to the mayor along with the contract and send it over to him. Right along. Okay, the charter and citizens complaints, I'd ask that we table that too until the charter commission, you know, finishes with their review and their recommendations and see what changes come out of that. Really, we're sort of in limbo between process here.
I move we table it till next meeting.
Okay. Second.
A second.
Any further discussion? No? Does everybody vote?
Aye.
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 Very much. Okay, police budget cuts, personnel and operating reductions. Little statement to start off with. Just want to say that the Public Safety Commission does not hire, discipline, or fire personnel in its present form. The mayor is charged with that responsibility, except for maybe the school department. And of the articles I've read recently, today's My Turn article by Wilson Roberts, whom I have a great amount of respect for, has written what I believe to be the most well thought out and constructive approach to how the city would decide the programming for the Public Safety Division in the future. Mary Ann Bullock, Precinct 5 counselor, which is my counselor, she made a couple of good comments about the budgeting process and being more inclusive in the community. Although I take exception with her comment about Greenfield being in East Hampton or some other community. Greenfield is a Greenfield's a county seat community. It has a hospital, courthouse, a jail, has a multitude of social services. Has a pretty good influx of people coming and going every day. A lot of these communities like East Hampton just don't have the issues that Greenfield has. Along with that, and all my stuff I have here, I have a list of items, and they're only for discussion. I don't necessarily agree with them or support them, but with the changes that are sort of being asked for in the community and the changes to budget, these are things that I think they should be put on the table for discussion, along with the police department and their staff, and sort of come together as recommendations to the mayor going forward. It'll take some time, obviously, to go through all these things, and so I'll just sort of go down the list as I have them. Discontinue any work on accreditation maintenance. Council has cut the budget for building upgrades to meet standards for accreditation, and you don't have the personnel to manage this program. Discontinue the community policing program. It would seem the support for those programs are no longer present, and the lead officer in the program has resigned as of last Friday. She does not want to work for a community that does not support community policing programs, I've heard. And she has also had several job offers from communities that would like to build community policing programs. And we don't have the budget and the support to continue this program. Discontinue the work on the body camera program. City Council cut funding for an officer to manage the program, and the liability for the city is too great to run a program without constant monitoring. Again, the budget and the personnel are the issue. Discontinue basic medical calls. Refer those calls to AMR and the fire department. Continue life-threatening calls, obviously. Cease proactive policing model. Instead, move to a reactive model like the fire department uses. Remain in the station, and when a call comes in, answer the call and return to the station after servicing the call. You will need to make some changes in the building to accommodate this model. Eliminate the night shift and institute a 7P to 3A shift. This will allow you to move personnel to higher call volume times of the day, and calls that come in between 3 in the morning and 8 a.m. Would be transferred to the state police or some other agency. Obviously, if major crime came in, you'd have to do a call back with the oncoming shift and deal with it in that manner. Move to 2-man cruisers as the operating model to reduce the number of vehicles an department you would need for operations, and you would save on fuel and expenses. Discontinue answering mental health calls, refer them to other agencies. Discontinue any training that is not mandated or required by the city unless the budget specifically addresses it. Establish a budget line item that actually reflects the projected expenses for each program. The process of moving money around in the budget during the year to maintain various programs does not reflect the actual cost of these programs. I realize all departments within the city probably do it during the year, but the practice does not give a true picture of what the costs are for programs. Disband the K-9 unit, as you may need to move the officer to other duties. Like I say, I don't recommend to support these. I just throw them out on the table for things that we may have to deal with coming up. And I would also ask the chief to add any additional things which he just gave us about the cruisers. So we just highlight that.
So, yeah, there's a lot to unpack here. So I'll start off with that. One, I want to start off with some good news. So, Greenfield Police Department was awarded a grant today of $31,229 in order to purchase another signboard, a message board that's very popular in the community. It helps mitigate traffic and slow things down. So I wanted to point out that the work still goes on, and we're still moving forward with what we have. Saying that, effective at 3 p.m. Today, due to deep budget cuts imposed by the City Council, coupled with fuel costs that are approximately double of which they were budgeted, the Greenfield Police Department is implementing the following changes. Staffing will be reduced from 4 single officer cruisers to 2 double officer cruisers. Cruiser mileage will be limited to trips that are absolutely necessary to our core mission as a police department. Idling cruisers should be limited to reduce fuel consumption. We have estimated deficit in our line item this year of nearly $25,000. Next year's budget, the FY '23, was based on this year's projections. So we're already looking at least a $25,000 deficit in next year. Not only that, but the predictions of fuel are going up to, I've heard, don't be surprised to see $6 a gallon for unleaded. I feel bad for the fire department that has to buy diesel, and maybe the ambulance has to buy diesel, but we haven't budgeted for that. So we're already gonna be in the hole of greater than $25,000, if not closer to $50,000. We expect these fuel costs to continue over the rise for F '23. We continue to give the highest priority to life-threatening calls. The mission of the department is about life and property, and we will continue that mission. The department recognizes that these changes will affect response time for certain type of calls though, including a proactive approach to crime and traffic enforcement and visibility within our community. These significant changes are designed to ensure the safety of our officers by sending no fewer than 2 officers to a call while addressing the financial and political realities that confront the department. And that's effective immediately by 3 p.m.
Any other items you wanna add to
I
the list?
do. So we have a lot on the table here, and we have some decisions to make. People have to understand that what our staffing is, to understand what 8 officers are gonna cut. And you guys are gonna help me with this, because you're the people that have been asked to help me with this. So currently, right now, we have 6 officers assigned to day shift. Having 6 officers assigned to day shift does not mean you have 6 officers on day shift. That means you have approximately 4 officers, barring anybody from being sick or vacation, or any other type of training, all of that, yeah. So typically, we have 3 officers. On great days, we have 4 officers. We have no more than 4 officers on each shift. So day shift is assigned 6 officers to cover those positions. The evening shift has 6 officers to cover those positions. Midnight shift has 6 officers to cover those positions. We also have 6 officers that are assigned to auxiliary positions, such as Detective Bureau, where we have 4 officers assigned to the Detective Bureau, 2 officers assigned to community policing. We also have 6 sergeants. The 6 sergeants are there to supervise everybody. And having 6 sergeants means there's 1 on each shift. Often when they have a day off, training, all of that type of leave, there's no officers, there's no sergeants on the shift. We have 3 commanders, we have 4 commanders, 2 lieutenants, a deputy chief, and a chief. And right now, currently, we have 1 lieutenant and me working. So, that's what staff, that's what we have. To take a position out of those figures, you're either talking about taking basically all of your command staff, which means you have no supervision in the police department. So I'm not sure that's on the table, but we're gonna have to judge that. We can take more people off of each shift, which means you'll have less than 3 police officers in the city of Greenfield. And I have to say, when I went to Dunkin' Donuts this morning, there's more than 3 people working at Dunkin' Donuts at any given time, and you have put for police protection in the city of Greenfield on good days. You have, or we can get rid of an entire shift, which would be recommended of midnights, and you have 0 police coverage on those hours. Or you get rid of the auxiliary services, such as detectives and the community resource officers. Let me just give you a little idea of because a lot of people don't understand what the detectives do, and the loss of these jobs. So when I run down the list, just imagine that Greenfield will be without these services. The detectives do sex offender registration and audits, so they keep track of all the sex offenders in town. We will not be able to, we'll be able to do the registration, we have to by law, but we're gonna have 1 person doing that, and we're gonna be backlogged. And that 1 person would be the same person that does firearms, so the firearms hours to get firearms permits would be reduced in order to be able to perform that duty. All unattended deaths will not have a detective assigned to it. We will respond with a 2-person police car, but they won't be experts in what they're doing, the compassion of which they give to a family that has lost a loved one, and the time that is spent will not be available, And if they are, and if any time that the officers are tied up, we have to hire overtime to replace that unit, those units that are tied up. District Attorney Officer referrals such as adult sexual assaults, juvenile sexual assaults, Disabled Person Protection Commission, Department of Children and Family, DCF cases, Child Advocacy Center case reviews, Child Advocacy Center and SANE, which is an acronym for Sexual Assault Investigative Network, is the Child Sexual Assault Unit. We won't have any experts in child sexual assaults. Missing person investigations will be lacking, organized crime investigations will be lacking, vice and human trafficking investigations will be lacking, financial crime investigations will be lacking, narcotics investigations will be lacking, cyber crimes will be lacking, major crime and crime scene processing, such as robberies, structure, vehicle fires, bias crimes, identity theft, and crime scene processing, such as forensic photography, fingerprint, and evidence collection, all will be eliminated. If this plan goes in place.
Right.
Supervision of the Detective Bureau, all duties and representatives of the supervision of this unit will also be eliminated, if we decide to go in that direction. Some hard decisions have to be made.
Can you run down the list also for us for the community policing? You have that next, very good.
I have to tell you, I have one of our community policing officers here, without a doubt, I will not be able to do their job justice. And I'm probably missing a lot of things, I'm a little tired, I'm a little rushed, so I put in what I can think of. But we're gonna be, we just trained 3 officers, and we have an additional officer, that we were gonna institute a bike patrol program, and have bike patrols downtown. That was gonna be one way that we're gonna be able to reduce fuel, but we will not have the manpower to do that. The Children's Self-Defense Program, we just sent 3 officers to Children's Self-Defense Program, where the officers are able to teach children how to be able to defend themselves against predators. That won't be there. We're about to institute the cop card program again this summer. We already lined up a photographer. We will have to cancel that. The Comfort Dog program will be canceled. The Canine Patrol, NICO, will probably be eliminated. And the grant will have to be refunded. We got a $30,000 grant, so we will have to find the money to refund that if that decision is made. The co-response program is on the line, because we do not have the officers to be able to do that. That's a $200,000 grant. We won't have to pay that back, but that's money that we will not be able to use, because we won't be able to do the scope of the grant. And I just have to say, we just found out with the co-response grant, I wish our clinician was here, but they're out on the road helping people with that have mental behavioral health disorders. But we found that one program reduced involuntary commitments of 65% over the last year. We won't be able to do that. Recruitment drives, which we have been targeting communities of which that we don't represent in our department, will have to cease. The community response officers are going to be put back into patrol. The other things that's just like a small brush. There's also, we have a relationship with Bicycle Bob that gives us backpacks for the homeless. We do outreach with the homeless. We actually go and check once a week. We check everybody that lives in the woods and make sure that they have all the needs that they have. We won't be able to do that. We won't be able to get the backpacks for the homeless. We were actually planning on working with Bicycle Bob also. This is the guy that's down in Springfield that provides bicycles for kids that don't have bicycles, and that was part of the program that we were getting into. The body cams.
Explain the liability and why, if we don't have the personnel to manage it, we would be liable, could be sued and liable.
Yeah, so the body cams, it's not just recording. You have to understand that, what comes along with body cameras is the review of the recordings. If we don't review the recordings of the officers, and the officers are making typically small mistakes, but they're making this small mistake repeated, over and over and over again without being noticed, then we're gonna be found liable because we didn't do anything to manage our officers. It's, failure to supervise is what it's called. And one of the biggest things that law enforcement gets in trouble, liability-wise, is failure to train and failure to supervise. And that brings in punitive damages, especially when you're failing to supervise. So, a body camera takes a lot of effort and it has to be a supervisor that is monitoring that to make sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to do. Or why have body cameras? If we're not going to monitor them to make sure that we're doing the right things, why put them on at all? The other thing is that comes along with body cameras is FOIA requests. And there's a lot of FOIA requests. And you have to go and redact all of the things that go through there. So for example, if your child was caught, for better words, parking by an officer with their significant other in a park, and we get a FOIA request for that, I'm sure that you'd probably want us to block out faces and names and all of that stuff. Well, that takes time. So there's a lot of work that comes with body cameras. It's not simply just putting them on your body. The body cam now, there's several counselors, and I have to bring it up, that several counselors attack their stipends, such as detective stipends. The reason why we have detective stipends is because we have certain officers that go above and beyond their scope of duties. They're on call 24 hours a day. They give away time from their family. They're advanced training. They have hours and hours and hours, hundreds of hours of advanced training to do all that stuff on that list. They deserve to be compensated more than the person that didn't do any of that stuff. And the detective stipend was attacked. The body camera stipend was attacked, as it is our regular job, but it has to be understood that we're changing the working conditions of the officers. The officers, when they're wearing the body cameras, it's not, again, simple as wearing the body cameras. They then have to manage those body cameras. They have to review the body cameras before they do reports. They have to understand that their reports need to match with exactly what happened and include all of the emotions and everything else that goes along with it. This takes a lot of work on the behalf of the officers. And also, it's fair to say that the officers took a 0% COLA this year. And there is an 8 to 10% inflation costs in the country right now. Prices are going up for our officers in groceries and gas bills and everything else. And they took a 0% COLA for this city. And the only thing that they asked for is a little bit of extra work that they would like to do, is they would like to be able to get a 2% increase for the work that they have to do with the body camera stipends. Now, that's one of the things that's online. If the officers decide, now they have a contractual right to have that body camera stipend. If they decide to give up that body camera stipend, we will not put cameras on them. That's not fair to ask them to do that. So that's in play right now. The canine stipend, one counselor doesn't want us to pay the canine stipend. The Garcia Act, it's called the Garcia Act. It's a federal law that we have to pay somebody to take care of that dog. That dog is owned by the city. That dog goes home to somebody's home. That person then has to feed the dog, bathe the dog, house the dog, and all of the stuff that goes with that care of the dog. And not only do they deserve compensation for all of that work, it's mandated by law. So if the counselors want me to cut the stipends, I have to cut the programs. There's no other ways around it. Sorry, I'm getting a little,
That's okay.
it's 2 weeks and
Yeah.
maybe I need to figure out.
Yeah, and some of those mandated items that turn into unilateral change in working conditions are bargainable, and that's how
It's all bargainable.
how the stipends come about. And stipends are nothing new throughout the city in different departments.
This
Several
is all
departments have
standard
stipends.
across the country.
Right.
There's nothing that's not standard that no other police department does. The accreditation maintenance, there's just me. Right now, we're in the middle of accreditation. They have a list of things, small little tweaks, small things that were missed. I have to worry about certifying my officers in post. And that I have to interview all officers A through H. I have to make all large packets, and I have to do all of this work. Or we're not going to have officers that are A through H. I can't keep up with the accreditation program. And
Well, explain that, because that's a new thing under the reform bill.
the
Wow.
post,
Yeah.
so post has a new mandate that all officers have to have certain criteria to be police officers. One of the criteria is to be interviewed by the agency. Now, even though a police officer has been a police officer here for example, myself, nearly 30-something years, I lost track of how many years it is, I still now have to be re-interviewed by the city. Now, the mayor will re-interview me, because I can't interview myself, but for all the other officers, I have to re-interview the officers, and they have a list of questions. The questions are about 20 different questions that I have to ensure that the officers have. I have to make sure that they're all been vetted. The background checks have been done, medical, psychologicals have all been done. I have to gather all of that information of records that are 30 years ago. I have to make sure that they're not on the the national decertification list that they have. So all of that work has to be put, and then I have to get that done by June 15th and submit it to the state. The state will look at that and decide whether that the officers can be police officers or not.
Certified, decertified.
Yeah, certified or that's a brand new thing. We've never had that. Matter of fact, the whole list that, I think you have the packet of the post, that's all brand new management stuff that's come over in the last year. So we don't have the managers to do it right now. So that puts accreditation at risk. Also, accreditation is something that you have to keep up all year round. There's things, every weekly checks, monthly checks, and it takes management to do that. Management is just not exist. Management makes sure that everything is running. The police officers take care of you, we take care of the police officers. Repairs to the police station. The repairs to the police station this year alone were already minus $13,433 for maintenance of an aging police station that has leaks in the roof, that has mold in the back, and we've already discussed some of these things that have to happen. I'm putting Band-Aids. My Band-Aids are up to $13,000, and I just got another bill right here from the generator, because the generator, which is over 30 years old in that area, has a leak in the generator and the radiator. So this bill right here is another $11,500. Now, normally in our budget, we would try to find different areas to move around to cover these costs, but they just wiped that out for next year. So there is no moving things around. When I have a generator that has a hole in it, I'm going to have to either go back to the council or work with the mayor's office to be able to find that money. We're also talking about the loss of officers, but there's also something else that I was going to enact, and we have a box right in the other room that has all the devices, but we were going to enact what's called the Verizon Connect GPS tracking systems, where we're going to put GPS tracking systems in our cruisers to ensure that our cruisers are going safe and reasonable speeds, to make sure that the idling is down, to lower the cost of the fuel, to look at engine repairs, because if you have an engine that has a repair, it starts eating away gas. And also, I talked about the idling time, I'm sorry, Emma. Also, it tells us where the cruisers are in relation to the calls of service. So if we have somebody with a heart attack and we have an officer that is 300 feet away and an officer 3 miles away, we would send the officers 300 feet away. Again, saving response time and gas. I can't put a program like that in place if I don't have the money to be able to do that. Things that also are on the table, like I said, things are on the table is getting rid of the entire detective bureau, getting rid of the entire midnight shift, losing the court attorney who is here, who not only works for the police department but works for the entire city. That he legitimately makes sure that all of our ducks are in a row before it goes to court. We used to have an officer there, we hired an attorney, and he's invaluable to our mission of our department, and make sure that everything is, the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed.
All the motion hearings and other things.
All the motion hearings and all of that stuff is gonna be handled by an untrained police officer.
Right.
And I told it, David Sullivan. So I talked to him about the ramifications of that as well today. I also talked to the state police about maybe they can help cover the city of Greenfield. They already explained that they have the entire county, and they only have 4 police officers, 4 state troopers for the entire county, including all of 91, and communities so far away as Savoy and Florida, and they said, please just don't count on us. So that was the word. So I talked to the detective supervisor that does the detective, and they are not set up to handle a county seat worth of work. They have like 2 detectives, for the entire, they do all of the small towns, and that's what they're set up for. They are not prepared. There is nobody in our community that is prepared to do what we're going to lose. That's the fact. I'm not trying to scare anybody.
No.
That's the fact. There's nothing in place.
Back up on the community policing, and maybe talk for a second about, you know, what you do along the areas of elder abuse, elder crime, elder scams, and all those areas that community policing handles, as well as the detectives. But I think it also falls under what Laura was doing as well.
Can I call them up, because they're much better at that than I am.
Sure.
You're on the hot seat, not me.
I'm Laura Gordon, Greenfield Police Department, one of the community resource officers. So as you were saying, we do a lot with the elders in our community where we go and do different programs for them. I know Officer Llewellyn, who's the other community resource officer, excuse me, was about to do a program at the senior center in regards to scams. And he's not gonna be able to do that. We do a lot of programming. We go to the different housing here in town, talk to the different elders in our community, and find out what their needs are. And we're just not gonna have those services. Myself and Officer Llewellyn get calls directly from some of these individuals, whether it's unsheltered people that we have a great relationship with, elders in our community and others. They'll call us directly because they're comfortable with us. And unfortunately, we're just not gonna be able to provide those services anymore.
Right, Salvation Army, can you mention that?
Yeah, so I go to the Salvation Army on Chapman Street, probably a couple times a week. It's a great place for me to check in with a lot of the unsheltered people that I work with, either at breakfast time or lunchtime. And it's a great way to just, hey, how are you doing? Do you need anything? A lot of times somebody will be like, hey, I haven't seen somebody in a few days. Can you start looking for them? And then we start doing our outreach to the individuals or trying to track where they have been and or going out to their actual camps. So again, that will just be something that we won't have the resources to be able to go out and do those things.
Sure. Any more comments?
People think that the police officers in this town go and harass the people without shelter. And it really has to be said that if that was the fact, that they wouldn't be asking our community resource officers to attend their weddings, to attend their funerals, to eat lunch with them at the Salvation Army. These are our people. We've lived and grown up. I can tell she's emotional because we've grown up with these people for 30 years. These are our people as well. And we don't go and harass them. We make sure that they follow the rules. We enforce the rules. We have what I call compassionate enforcement. Because if we don't enforce the rules, there's nobody else to enforce the rules. That's our duty, but we do it compassionately, and they understand that. When they see Officer Gordon show up, sometimes they say, uh-oh, but they put their beers away. You know, they respect her. You know, they know when she's working, they know when she's not working. Sometimes she takes overtime and they go, uh-oh, comes out again.
Yeah.
You know, they have respect, we have respect for them, and they have respect for us. Are you done with that?
Sure.
Can I just make a comment?
Sure,
Sorry, Chair.
sure, go ahead.
I just would like to say, Officer Gordon, I've been fortunate in my work in low-income housing in Greenfield now for 3 years to have been a recipient and an observer of the work that you've done in the community. And based on the models that have been happening nationally, you set forth here something in motion that had never existed. And I first just want to thank you, like just say thank you, and that your work is not for naught. We haven't got to the end game yet. We're hearing now the avalanche, which can be very difficult. You're living it, and we're listening. And so I just mostly want to thank you and say that my hope is that we'll find a way through this, this difficult crisis we're in without losing sight of the long view, because you manifest that. And the work you've done here has made a huge difference in a number of people's lives here. And also the organizations and agencies that work with these communities, of which we have every single social service organization up here in this area because of the needs that have been presented. So I just wanted to make sure a loud and clear endorsement and thank you is on the table for you today. Don't give up hope.
Thank you.
I'd like to just take an opportunity to say the names of the officers, which I asked several city councilors to allow me to say the names of the officers that are facing layoffs. Brendan Smith, Adam Belleville, Marcus Johansson, Jedediah Henry, Matthew Llewellyn, Nicholas Limoges, and Brandon LaGoy. One of those jobs will be saved by a senior officer that is leaving their post. So it will be somebody that is saved from that. I hope I don't have to say bye to all these, every single one of these officers left a full-time job and came to Greenfield because they thought Greenfield supported their police department.
Any of those officers speak multiple languages for the community that we have within the community?
The job that the senior officer's job is saving speaks Moldavian. And I'm not sure.
In that group.
Right, but somebody needs to say their names. It's important to know. These are people, they have lives, they're not just a pity party. You know, they came here from other communities, saving approximately $50,000 in training costs per officer. There's hundreds of thousands of dollars in training that we will have to retrain officers if this doesn't work. There's, like I said, there's a $200,000 grant that we're risk losing, $65,000 in body camera grant that we will lose if we don't implement the body camera. That if they want body cameras, they will have to come around and pay that out of capital expense. We were going to ask for capital expense for that, and we found a grant. The other narrative that's going out is that how much more money that we invest in our policing in Greenfield, and it's not fair to compare Greenfield to towns, and I have all the respect for these other towns, and they have their own missions, but East Hampton is not Greenfield. Greenfield and East Hampton are two completely different type of communities and have different kinds of services and different problems. And North Adams is the 6th highest crime rate in the state, and that's what they want to compare us to. And I live in this community, and I don't want to be the 5th largest crime rate in the state. What we are is a county seat. He said it himself. And what is fair to do is to compare Greenfield as a county seat with a county courthouse, a hospital, and all of the services that we have and all the commerce that we have to other departments that are county seats. Northampton, with their 10% cut, police spending per population is $217. Now that is with their cut. They have now replaced the officers that were cut and are increasing their budget by 3%, as far as I understand. It didn't work. Greenfield is $220 of police spending per population. Plymouth is 226, Pittsfield is 242, Salem is 268, Lowell's 275, Worcester is 298, Dedham is 282, Springfield is 357, Barnstable is $369, Taunton is $410, and Boston is $574 per person that police pay in police spending. Now, we're not Boston. I understand that. They have a much bigger population, but it's still population. We are not stealing from this community. And our officers are hurt by the accusation that we are. This is the truth. We are a county seat.
Chief, can you elaborate a little bit more on the county seat and how that affects the services the police department has to do?
Sure. So we have all these services that bring people in. Homeless shelter. When they bring people in, they're not serving just the unsheltered people of Greenfield. They're serving the entire state. Detox. Detox does not just serve the city of Greenfield and our residents, they serve the entire state. People are brought in from the entire state to Northern Hope, to all of these programs that go on for the services. When there's a bed open, they ship them to people here. Often, if the person comes here and they don't want to stay, it's called leaving against medical advice. They walk out the door and into our community. They don't know the community. The people in Greenfield are getting their cars stolen because people want to go back to where they're coming from. They shoplift from our stores, and I'm not. It is what it is. I'm not judging. It is what it is. But we have a hospital in town. All people that have mental health or behavioral health disorders, when they get committed, go to the Greenfield Hospital and police officers drop them off and then go back to their town. The problem is then owned by the city of Greenfield. So we have to service that. East Hampton is a good example. If East Hampton has a problem, they bring that problem to Northampton. And then they drop the problem off and they go back to East Hampton. It takes a long time for that person to get back to East Hampton. Same thing with North Adams. North Adams doesn't have a hospital. A lot of our work is dealing with the services that are brought into town. Now, I agree we should have services in town. I am 100% belief in the compassion that Greenfield brings to these people. And it's important for us too, because we're one of the first people that ask for these services as the police department. But it is what it is. We have to service the services that service other people. Some people call us the first responders. I like to be known as the last responder. Of course, we'll be there first, but the last responder means there's nobody else. When all goes downhill and we're at desperate level is when the police come. And if the police doesn't solve that problem, there is nobody else that will solve that problem. These men and women are your last defense. And to treat them the way that they are treated is horrendous. And I have to bring this up. One of our officers, which I'm not going to mention his name, but his name is out in the public. And this really, really hurts me personally. Because not only he's been a colleague of mine for 30 years, he's also a friend of mine. He had a problem. This was 5, 6 years ago. I don't know exactly when it was, but it was about 5 or 6 years ago. He was going through a divorce. He had a problem. He had an addiction. He made a mistake that many people of which we serve and which we help every single day make those same mistakes. And he made a mistake, and he was disciplined for that mistake, the discipline of which was agreed upon by the city of the Greenfield and the patrolman and the union of which he belonged to, which is said, which many, many, many union members have, if you have an addiction, an abuse problem, that this is the way we're going to help you. My officers are people. They make mistakes. They used his name over and over and over again for a mistake that he made 5 or 6 years ago, of which he got help and has never made that mistake ever again. And people want his head and they want him fired. A police officer that has helped you as a community for 30 years. You want to throw him away because of a problem that he had. Do you want our police officers to treat you that way? And it's not you, and I apologize, but it was very, very hurtful. I understand the community is upset, and I understand that they're angry. I am too. But to treat my people like this is wrong, no matter how you see it. Take your anger and put it where it belongs. Take your signs and go on the common. I'm okay with it. Have your word. I will protect you and your First Amendment right to say anything you want about me and my officers. This is not right. I'm sorry. It's been a really long month. I'm sorry, Mayor.
Quite all right. Yep. A lot of pressure, a lot of stress, for sure.
I thank you for bringing that point up about the amount of police spending per, I read the article as well, so I'm glad you addressed that for me, and you gave me a little bit more insight on those numbers that I thought I was looking for. Actually, maybe we can talk about it, or next meeting we can come with a little bit more detail on that, because I think that really is a fair point on your side, that our population maybe increases with you know, the things that we service in the community and the things that we have available in Greenfield, and that it's not just that dollar amount isn't just servicing our immediate taxpayers in Greenfield, that it's actually serving other communities, surrounding communities as well. And I'd really be interested in looking at some of that information if we could gather some, just on, you know, maybe if we could get like how many people come into town to work or anything like that that would help support what you were saying,
I
and
have
so.
to have management to do that.
Yeah, I understand. It's just a point, I just wanted to maybe even just
I
bring up
agree.
as a point that,
I am a statistics man, these people will tell you,
Yeah.
I am all about statistics, and I agree we need to have the data in order to bolster our argument. One data that I have is that 32,225 residents called us for help. That number's not going to change. What is gonna change is unless there's gonna be a lot of, I'm sorry, we can't be there. Now, we will always be there if somebody's life is in danger. That is our mission, that is our goal. I can never ask a police officer not to help somebody that's in physical need. But there's gonna be a lot of service type of calls that aren't gonna be there. And maybe that's what the community wants, and some of the community is asking for that, and I understand that. But 32,000 people called us. I don't think 32,000 people were at the last council meeting.
Twice the population,
Some people called more than once.
of course. In the same day.
I'm sorry I got a little.
Yeah, no, it's stressful, I get it, and I agree with you. But I think we need to put together a little process here, maybe the commission, yourself and. you
Yes,
know,
we have some time.
Yeah, with your staff and the mayor, and kind of come to a, an agreement on,
It's only- it's
what
only
needs
been
to
a
be
week.
done,
We
given
have-
the dollars
we
that
have to
we
make a
have to
plan.
work with.
It's only been a week, we have
Right.
to make a plan.
Right, yeah, it'll take some time, but it's sort of the stuff that's out there and on the table for discussion, obviously. Okay. Any more questions of the chief?
I just want to thank you for what you shared, all of it. There never should be apology for pain that is felt on any level, and high level of professionalism that I've been fortunate to witness with you, and even being someone who went around and toured the accreditation process here. It was stunning, the breadth of information and skill with what you have brought this station to, along with everybody on your team. This has been a difficult period, and we are in a crisis, and it's very important that you realize that you're not alone going through this. There has to be a sorting. My request is, what is the process? There needs to be a digestion, a clarity on timelines and deadlines, so that we can be well-versed on, one, what do you recommend, and then our questions answered. Because there are opportunities here that some look possible to minimize certain, the word I want to use is gouging, unfair gouging of certain efforts that maybe could be worked through, versus things just to hit certain budget goals we'll have to do. And that's not clear, and we need time. This is a very, very important moment, not to let the experience of feeling blown up blow you up. And I
Right.
don't mean just you, but everybody in this department needs to stand steady. Stand steady, and we're gonna walk with you through this. And also, we need not to group everybody's perspective all at once here. That's what the press does sometimes in an effort to communicate information, some clear, some not. As a PSC member, my goal is fact from fiction, and then to help be part of a leadership team to guide you and give input when requested to the mayor. So I just want to say we need to move forward and stay steady. But the key thing I'd like to know is, what is the timeline? Processing all the information shared today is important. This is not a blueprint. This is information that has been shared
Right.
along with your very detailed reports. I am in the role as secretary. I will be very thorough in terms of what is shared in those notes. That is our record. I hope they're circulated widely. My hope is, may they be circulated. So we will take extra, I don't know if I could even do extra care, more care in the minutes.
You do a pretty good job from the
Minutes,
get-go.
because it is our record of today, and it is taped, and we will be thorough in that, and hopefully invite people's engagement. The problem in situations like this is silence. There's pain on all sides, there's historic pain, but we can't take in Greenfield the hit of the rage of a nation. We need to look at our people and make the right choices here. But there's background to so much. So I'd like to ask the chair, if you could please guide us now on what do we do with the information that's prepared, and what's our timeline for process? Because we obviously can't do all this tonight.
Right,
That's not
well,
possible.
we're talking about fiscal year July 1's budget.
I only caution you, the deeper you go into the fiscal year, the harder the cuts are gonna be.
Right.
If the cuts are what they are,
Right.
then we have to rip the Band-Aid off rather than make the
Right.
wound deeper.
Yeah,
So,
we need to work with the mayor and you and put together,
it'll be a busy month.
it'll be a busy
Yeah.
month, to put together, you know, a process. It'll probably be a public meeting for all here, and we'll have to have an emergency special meeting or two. The only thing is I'm gone for the month, so my vice president.
Trial by
But I-
fire, I'm kinda used
But
to
if you,
it.
you know, but if you do it on WebEx or something like that, maybe in Guam, I can, maybe 15 hours ahead, but maybe I can get online with you guys. But, yeah, we'll immediately try to put together a process to deal with all this stuff and come to a conclusion.
Probably need more than
Oh, yeah, special,
once a month.
yeah, special meetings, yeah, we'll have to.
I have to say that the decisions that will be made, just like the counselors, I spoke to a lot of counselors, and they said, don't take it personally. I'm like, it's not personal. You have to do what is right, and you have to do what you can live with. And I have now those same decisions. So I have to look and I have to make those decisions, what is right for this police department in the city of Greenfield. And it's the city of Greenfield that is my responsibility. I have the fiduciary responsibility to stay within my budget. And I have the people and the safety of the people that is upmost in my mind. I'm a community policing person at heart, and every single one of these programs that will be being cut hurts me more than it hurts most people. So, there will be some hard decisions to make, but we will do them as carefully as possible, with as much thought as possible.
No, it is very difficult. Any more?
I'm still unclear on the next step, it's not clear to me. I hear the.
Yeah, no, I'll hook up with the mayor and the
Okay.
chief, and we'll come up with a process going forward.
Okay,
And
that's
it'll
helpful.
definitely require some special meetings,
Mhm.
because it'll have to be public with us involved, and come up with an agenda and a platform for those meetings.
Thank you.
I have a question for the mayor.
Sure.
Mayor, I think I read in the paper, or somehow I heard this, that the meeting room in the town hall is equipped for WebEx as well as an open meeting?
Both the John Zahn Center, after 4 PM, so from 4 on, is hybrid capable. What that means is you can have an in-person meeting, and so both that and the city hall meeting room are hybrid capable. One of them holds a lot more people than the other one does. In fact, the capacity in the city hall meeting room, because of the way we had to configure the furniture in there, mainly that giant, nearly unmovable table, the way we had to configure it to accommodate the video capability is, means that there's less capacity in there for it'll cover who needs to be at the meeting, but it may not cover that many people. So that would be a time when, and we will be switching to Zoom as well for both, very soon. I can't remember the exact date. So we won't be WebEx, but in either case, it would be a Zoom meeting in either place. But yes, we can accommodate both video capability, hybrid capability that allows people to be online and participating, as it also allows people to be in person.
That's one more thing I forgot to add.
Sure, go ahead.
I wanna add that the relationship between us and AMR has been stellar. They are a fine, most professional organization I've ever worked with, and I've worked with them locally, I worked with them nationally, we partnered with them, and we helped them after the Las Vegas shootings, and my dogs worked with their upper management as well as the workers that responded to those scenes. And they also made a commitment to the police department to help us with our medical supplies, of which a line item we don't have. So it goes far beyond the contract. If you're just looking at the words on the paper, you're not looking at the people that are behind those words.
Thank you. Okay. Next item on the agenda is dispatch updates. Updates for dispatch, you know, it goes on and on, right?
Dispatch is going, swell right now. I did not prepare an update. I do thank the council for completely supporting the budget. They were looking at, cutting, some of the, dispatch budget too, but they did not, which is, we have very grateful dispatchers because a lot of those dispatchers left jobs to come to settle in Greenfield. So we do appreciate the fact that that didn't happen. Those, people are absolutely responsible for our lives, the lives of the firefighters, the lives of the EMTs. We rely on those people behind those desks, so I appreciate the fact that they weren't cut. And also, the people of Greenfield rely on those. So those are extremely, extremely important positions, just as important as any other first responder.
Michelle's got a commitment that she cannot,
I apologize.
she has
No,
to
no,
leave,
okay, sorry.
so,
I took a lot of time, I apologize.
no, that's fine.
You're not gonna vote on anything else that we
Nope.
need one?
Nope, no more votes coming up,
Okay. Thank you, sorry.
Thank
that I
you.
know of. All right, see you, Michelle.
Bye.
We'll be in
All
touch.
right, thank you.
Any further questions of the chief on the dispatch? Okay. Chief. Fire department updates, reports, call volume.
Thank you.
Real quick, our training effort really went into a high gear for some of our more advanced trained firefighters in technical rescue. There was stabilization and lift class, which is just what it sounds like, lifting heavy objects off of compromising situations. And so the picture that is presented there is one of the evolutions that we had, that Captain Phelps, Lieutenant Kimball, and Lieutenant MacGyver went to for this training. This is very eerily similar to an incident where we had 10 years ago, where we had to perform the same type of evolution. So kudos to those folks that went to training. We were able to get a full department drill. We used the Green River School for a day and had a great day with exercises and drills. We look forward to doing more of that in the future. We're finally getting back into schools for fire education. That's been a long time coming, so we're happy to do that. Budget updates are as follows. You can see that the overtime budget is grossly in the hole. That is for many reasons. However, City Council has agreed to do a transfer out of the ambulance revenue to overcome those shortcomings. So, and then the response data is we're in brush season last month. We had some pretty intense fires that the crews went to, including one in Turner's Falls, where our crew, brush truck and an engine were assigned to the rear of an industrial building just as the fire made it to the building and was able to cut the fire off and save the building. It's actually, I think it's the crew that's here that responded to that, so that was a job well done. We went out of town 6 times last month. We received 5 different mutual aid companies in the city. A couple notable incidents of working fire on Plain Road, box alarm, brush fire on Main Street behind Sweeney Ford, on the first alarm for a large commercial dumpster fire that was full of bedding and carpets and just really stuff that didn't want to go out. So took a little bit of time. So that's the report with that. I will present to the council, or to the commission, the incident action plan for Wormtown coming up this weekend. So just peruse it, take a look at it. It's our response plan that spells out, God forbid, we have any type of unusual events beyond the usual that's up there. That event is expected to be large this year. It has been a few years since the event has been in town, So a tremendous amount of public safety resources will be not only handling the Memorial Day weekend, but also handling that event. So we are looking forward to it, so.
I would ask you or Alex, because I sent Alex last time, if you would just email Susan a copy of this stuff so
Yep.
that she can forward it to Caitlin in City Hall as part of what we have to turn over to the city clerk. I'd appreciate it, thanks. Any questions for Chief?
I have just one question. Is there any other large event happening in town this weekend? Is the Uncle
I
Sam?
apologize, I don't know if the Sam Clubs is gonna be in town, they usually are. Yeah, I would anticipate that.
Any questions, Susan? No? Thanks, Chief.
Yep. I forgot to mention, the new ambulance will be here probably right after July. So,
Okay.
that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
We don't have any new business. Public comment, if you want to make a public comment, there was a sign-up sheet. If everybody signed up that wants to make one, maybe just hand the sheet to her. Sheet. Anybody signed up to say something? Susan, she can ask. Go down the list.
Susan, work up, forgive me if I said your name
No
wrong.
problem. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'll be very brief. As you know, there are a lot of people in the community who are very concerned about the Buchanan case and the questions of discrimination within the police department. I have a couple of copies from that case that I will give to you that may be useful to you. We would very much like to see, as a result of one of these documents where the decision to not move forward on analysis of the Chief Hague and Lieutenant Dodge's testimony, and has been rejected by the judge. So we hope that Lieutenant Dodge will go back on service. And the other issue is just to have an independent investigation of all these questions so that we can get a police department that I think really wants to do the job that they want to do. This is not an anti-police department statement. It's much more a question of making sure that we have the kind of town that we really want. And if there are problems, we really want to solve them. And we would like an independent investigation to deal with that. Thank you.
Jeff, Bennington, excuse me, I'm sorry. Did you say Benson?
Bankston,
Bankston.
B-E-N-G-T-S-O-N.
Okay, sorry about that, thank you.
I am Jeff Bankston, I apologize for my dress, I'm a coach here in town, and this is our final practice pizza party of the year, I'm hoping to get there in time, although I'm already late.
Could be all gone.
Sorry, I don't need the pizza part. I am a lawyer, as you heard, I work for the department, I'm not here because of me working here right now. I'm here as a citizen of Greenfield. I've been an attorney since 2006. I was a prosecutor for 7 years, a defense attorney for 2, self-employed, and I work here where I'm an attorney as well as a court administrator. I'm a citizen of Greenfield, a coach, and my wife works in the child abuse unit of the district attorney's office. I'm not a local government guru. I do criminal law, I would say 98% of my career, so I don't know all the ins and outs of how things happen, when things happen, and where to go from there. Like many people, I assume in my same shoes. I was coaching last Wednesday, came home, got my kid supper, got him ready for bed, turned on the TV. It wasn't until the next day that I woke up hearing what I believe a budget that had already been somewhat discussed at Ways and Means was presented to the council with a vote to cut it by $1 million. I, along with I assume many other people, had no knowledge of that. And had there been, I assume people would have been there to discuss that then. Like I said, I'm a coach, and I don't know much about local government, but if this is my 4th and 1, 4th and goal, with 10 seconds left on the clock, I'm going for it, I'm not quitting. So I come to you today with a couple of examples that I want to give you, in hopes that whatever power you might have, you choose to exercise that, in order to get the council to reconsider. I've read in the news that one counselor, Lapiensky, if I'm saying it correctly, was quoted, and this is their quote from the news, not my own: "The police are not entitled to our money. They work for us, and we get to decide how many of them we need. Whether they get fired or not, whether they have children or not, whether they have to pay rent or not." We get to decide how many of them we need, whether they get fired or not, whether they have children or not, whether they have to pay rent or not. That may be as it pertains to those officers. I can tell you the kids I coach, his daughter cheers now, his kids play softball, other people's in this room. The kids I coach, a lot of them are from the low-income housing you discuss. A lot of them come to me, they know I work here. And they come to me and they say things. "Hey, you get to see Officer Donut on a daily basis?" "I do, buddy. I do, not now. And maybe not going forward. I did." "You know Officer Kratz used to be a school resource officer. We go grades 3 through 8, by the way. Many people are now coaches, knew these people when they were growing up. People who I prosecuted, who now coach with me, still come to me." So when you say you don't care about the officers' kids, care about my kids, the ones I coach. The kids that my kid goes to school with. The kids that live in those low-income housing, when their parents are going at it tooth and nail, and they need somebody to come help. Now, one more thing I want to say. AMR, thank you. They actually sponsor us as well. Don't know if you know that. I had some notes pertaining to them. This is in no way in disregard for what they do and how they respond to calls. I have the option, the benefit here, after a few years, of finally getting a window seat up front. AMR, if you don't know, is stationed right here. I have a radio in my office. I can listen to calls. I can hear when the calls come in that somebody's unresponsive, potential overdose, not breathing, etc. And I can tell you, without even looking at the numbers, that as it stands right now with the officers we have, and through my career as a defense attorney, prosecutor, etc., I would say they're probably short-staffed now. People know, the officers know, where to do those patrols. And they get there faster than AMR. Not to say that AMR doesn't get there fast, but when you're not breathing, and your heart's not beating, they get there first. I can't even tell you the number of lives they've saved since I've been here, where someone's unresponsive, they're there first, they call in Narcan administered, CPR in progress, whatever the case may be, and within minutes that person's back up. AMR comes, takes them to the hospital. If you don't have those patrolmen out there to do those functions, well, I mean, I guess your resident population might go down. That's the only benefit of that. And I say that with all the respect to everybody here, but if you sat and listened to the radio transmissions, to the response time of our officers, and the effects it has on the community as a whole, it can't be replaced. It cannot. If we could have an officer on every street in Greenfield, there should be. I know that's not feasible. I know this is gonna seem like timing is perfect. It's not intended this way. If I could have known and said this last week, I would have. Last year, everybody's aware of the national shoot the school, threaten the school incident, correct? And I know what happened yesterday. I'm not using that as a political thing today. A neighbor who I won't mention wrote to me. It was after I'd gone to sleep, so I didn't until next morning. But she wrote to me, "Jeff, are you sending Connor to school tomorrow? I'm scared. I don't know what to do." And so I wrote back to her. I said, I won't say her name, but I said to her, "Yes, I am." For two reasons. One, if something happens, it's gonna happen. Two, being in this building, I knew what plan was in place. And I knew that they had the staff and Sergeant Green to do everything proper and necessary to save as many lives as they could if something did happen. Without those special units, I don't know if I could answer her the same way now. With the way the schools are currently in Greenfield, which is not a big surprise to people, or not me coming here saying anything that the public isn't talking about daily, most kids don't want to be there as it is. Now when my neighbor comes and says, is it safe to send my kid to school on this day of national threat? I don't think I can answer yes to it. I don't wanna be in that position. Quite frankly, aside from being employed in Greenfield, there's no reason to have my kid in Greenfield schools or me to even live here. I brought up the fact that my wife works in the child abuse unit in the district attorney's office. She is a child abuse advocate. What that means is that kids who are sexually assaulted, kids who are abused by their parents or relatives, she's their go-to person for that case. If it's the child and mom, so to speak, they go to her for, not counseling, but to help proceed through the court system. When I was a prosecutor, child abuse cases, certain high-level domestics, and other high-level crimes, the second those come into the DA's office, they're assigned to an individual prosecutor. They're assigned to an individual advocate. The reason being is, as Officer Gordon pointed out, community members build trust by having consistent people to go to. If you don't have the staffing to field the detective bureau, where a child who's been sexually assaulted by their parent has to talk to Laura one day, maybe Officer Green the next day, Officer Butinsky the following day, that's not justice for our community. Not one bit. And to think that Greenfield's above child sexual assault and child domestics, don't kid yourself, okay? It's there. It's not public record, you can't name who it is, necessarily can't say how often it happens. But as a prosecutor and former defense attorney, I can tell you it exists, it does. And to cut the budget, to get rid of those people, where our citizens aren't gonna have an individual to speak to have that person they can call in the time of need, it's not doing them service, and it's not doing Franklin County service. Another situation, and again, this is not towards AMR, I'm just pointing this out on us here at the department, is last year or 2 years ago, there was an incident actually by my house. Not necessarily in our town, but a kid drowned. Unresponsive, in a pool. The town that it was in did not have roads marked properly. Thankfully, we have Officer Merrigan, our K-9 officer, who knew exactly where that was. He was able to respond. That kid has recovered 100% from, my understanding, basically being clinically dead in a pool. Since the town didn't have the roads marked properly and where it was, it took AMR longer to get there. But our officers with our local knowledge knew. He got there, that kid's alive today because of him. There's more members of society alive in Greenfield today because of these people than most people will ever realize. On a yearly basis, they save lives. On a daily basis, they save lives. And like I said, I'm a coach, I'm competitive. If it's game over, it's game over. But if there's one play left, I'm asking you guys to take it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
No, that's it. Thank you, sorry.
Well, thanks everybody for the comments, and the support, and the process going forward. We'll definitely need your help and support, as we move into a new stage for public safety in the community. Hopefully we can get some of this restored, get a little more balance in the conversation. And like I said, I'll meet with the mayor and I'll meet with the chief, and we'll put together a process moving forward, discussing all this stuff.
When are you going?
Leaving Saturday,
Uh,
meet with the mayor tomorrow. She's got time.
I do. I'll make time if I don't, but I think tomorrow's a good day.
Okay.
Susan, I'm just wondering if we should, have a tentative date that we're gonna meet next. Come up with a date, I don't know if we should meet next week, on Wednesday, or what do you think, Chief?
I won't be here, but
Next week is terrible for me. My son is coming home and I haven't seen him for a long time, and I have
2 weeks?
I have this, 2 weeks of
think we have to, get right to it though.
Right.
I think so too, and also I'm pretty good on international time zones, so if you offer to be on WebEx, I think we should make that happen.
Yeah, I'll try to, sure,
Absolutely.
yeah.
All right. Let's plan on
So-
2 weeks for a meeting.
Anybody know what the date is roughly? 2 weeks from now?
6 through
June.
10?
Six,
6 through 10?
six through 10, one of those days?
So Wednesday the 8th, potentially? Same time, potentially?
4 o'clock?
Yep. Depending on time open.
We should probably do that, can do that on a hybrid. Yeah, then I can probably jump on that.
Yeah, so you could do that in the city hall meeting room?
City Hall
Okay.
meeting. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Did you have a date? I missed it. 16.
Yeah.
6/8 Wednesday at 4 PM in the City Hall meeting room, in case we tweak the time for you, but we'll check on them. For Butch's talk.
Okay.
Just remember to, when you're in tomorrow, to tell Caitlin so we can
Oh, I
get
will.
it posted properly.
Yeah, well, and we have, building committee tomorrow.
Oh, yeah, we
4:30,
do.
So, we'll be chatting up. Okay. Motion for adjournment,
Move return.
second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Fine. Thanks, everybody, for coming.
Thank you, everybody.